We can cross now to the New Zealand Prime Minister. Let's hear from her.
20 seriously injured who are currently in Christchurch A&E. It is clear that this can now only be described as a terrorist attack. From what we know, it does appear to have been well planned. 2 explosive devices attached to suspects' vehicles have now been found and they have been disarmed. There are currently 4 individuals who have been apprehended, but 3 are connected to this attack who are currently in custody. One of which has publicly stated that they were Australian born. These are people who I would describe as having extremist views that have absolutely no place in New Zealand and in fact have no place in the world. While we do not have any reason to believe at this stage that there are any other suspects, we are not assuming that at this stage. The Joint Intelligence Group has been deployed and police are putting all of their resources into this situation. The Defence Force are currently transporting additional police staff to the region. Our national security threat level has been lifted from low to high. This, I want to assure people, is to ensure that all our agencies are responding in the most appropriate way. That includes at our borders. Many of you will have seen that Air New Zealand has cancelled all turboprop flights out of Christchurch tonight and will review the situation in the morning. Jet services both domestically and internationally are continuing to operate. I say again, there is heightened security. That is, of course, so we can assure people of their safety, and the police are working hard to ensure that people are able to move around their city safely. I have spoken this evening to the Mayor of Christchurch, and I intend to speak this evening to the Imam. But I also want to send a message to those directly affected. In fact, I'm sure right now New Zealand would like me to share a message on their behalf too. Our thoughts and our prayers are with those who have been impacted today. Christchurch was the home of these victims. For many, this may not have been the place they were born. In fact, for many, New Zealand was their choice, the place they actively came to and committed themselves to, the place they were raising their families, where they were part of communities that they loved and who loved them. It was a place that many came to for its safety, a place where they were free to practice their culture and their religion. For those of you who are watching at home tonight and questioning how this could have happened here, we, New Zealand, we were not a target because we are a safe harbour for those who hate. We were not chosen for this act of violence because we condone racism, because we're an enclave for extremism. We were chosen for the very fact that we are none of these things, because we represent diversity, kindness, compassion, a home for those who share our values, refuge for those who need it. And those values, I can assure you, will not and cannot be shaken by this attack. We are a proud nation of more than 200 ethnicities, 160 languages, and amongst that diversity we share common values. And the one that we place the currency on right now and tonight is our compassion and the support for the community of those directly affected by this tragedy. And secondly, the strongest possible condemnation of the ideology of the people who did this. You may have chosen us, but we utterly reject and condemn you.
Prime Minister, how did the perpetrators of this slip under the radar of the SIS and the GCSP?
What I can inform you of this time that those that, as far as I'm advised, currently in custody were not on security watch lists. That I'm sure will be a question, is if they were known from a security perspective, and they were not on any active watch lists. Of course, the police are currently questioning those in custody, so beyond that, there's not too much more I can say at this time.
Is that good enough that they weren't on watch lists? Was this preventable?
I think that gives you an indication there, at least from that in that regard, is they weren't on watch lists, so it's not a matter of someone having slipped under the radar. Again, though, it is early days. That's the assurance I can give people at this time. People are in custody, obviously being questioned. The Commissioner of Police will be giving an update again, roughly somewhere between 8 and 8:30. Those are questions that perhaps you can put to him again.
Has there been too much attention on Muslim terrorist risk rather than white supremacy?
I think we should be vigilant against the idea of extreme ideology and extreme violence and violent acts.
The agency's been putting too much of their focus on one sector of the risk.
You'll notice from the language that you hear from those who work in our intelligence and security services that their focus is on extremism, regardless of where it comes from. We need to be blind in that regard. It needs to absolutely focus on threat and ideology and extremism, because obviously that is what we have experienced here today.
Is this a new era in New Zealand where our innocence is gone?
We have undoubtedly experienced an attack today that is unprecedented, unlike anything that we have experienced before. But as I say, New Zealand has been chosen because we are not a place where violent extremism exists. We reject those notions and we must continue to reject them. This is not an enclave for that kind of behaviour, for that kind of ideology. We will and must reject it. This is a place where people should feel secure and will feel secure. I am not going to let this change New Zealand's profile. None of us should.
Prime Minister, if they weren't on our intelligence agency's watch list, why not?
Oh, obviously, Barry, it's an indication to you that they had not acted in a way that warranted it. Again, though, feel free to ask further questions. At this time, I'm not in a place to give you additional information beyond that.
So you'll be talking presumably...
Claire. Sorry, Barry, taking a question from Claire.
Have you had any information from Australia about whether they were on watch lists in Australia or what the one who has said he was born in Australia?
My understanding at this stage is that they weren't on watch lists. Again, I don't want to go too much beyond this. It is early days. You'll also understand I won't want to jeopardise the case that may be taken in the future as well. I do also want to acknowledge that I have been contacted by Prime Minister Scott Morrison. I intend to speak with him directly as soon as I'm able.
Advice about the risk profile.
Not at this stage, but certainly the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister of Australia have contacted the Deputy Prime Minister and myself.
Can you give us a sense of the age of the victims?
Not at this stage. I will have been amongst other members of the public who will have seen the footage as the injured were being brought to Christchurch A&E, and you certainly can see from that footage there is a real range of ages there. I imagine that these would have represented particular brothers, fathers, sons.
Killed?
I haven't had a breakdown at this stage. Sorry, it's not information I can share.
What is your advice at the moment about the risk?
The Australian man clearly has a very, we now know he has a very prevalent online presence, and it seems like it's been, stemmed back for a couple of weeks. How is it not that they have not been put on the watch list?
Again, these are obviously questions that at this point I'm unable to give additional details on. Obviously, though, that offender is in custody now, so I can give that assurance he has been apprehended. He is also accompanied by 2 other associates. He is being actively questioned, obviously. These may be additional questions that you could put to the Commissioner of Police.
Questions that you're asking of your
Obviously,
agencies?
Absolutely. Again, as I say, I've given you the advice they've given me about watch lists, but obviously these are absolutely questions that we'll be asking, including access to firearms.
What is your advice about any ongoing risks in either Christchurch or other centres, and what is the advice to people out there who still might be very worried about the situation?
At this stage, I'm certainly asking people to continue to follow the advice of the police. Yes, we have apprehended, there have been 3 individuals apprehended. However, the police aren't taking for granted that there may well be others that may need to be brought into custody. They've got no reason to expect that, but they haven't ruled it out. So please, in the meantime, continue to listen to police advice. But I also want to give assurance to people. The police are obviously incredibly active on the ground. They are bringing in additional police officers. The Defence Force are bringing them down. So just listen to the advice that's available to you. But we are ensuring the security of those who are moving around in Christchurch at this time.
The 4th person that was arrested, Prime Minister, you say this one principal had 2 associates.
Yes.
The 4th person, what have they?
They're not connected. They're not directly connected to the attack.
Arrested in Christchurch?
Sorry.
Are all the arrests in Christchurch?
That is my understanding, yes.
Can you tell us why they've been arrested?
In connection to the attacks today, or the individual that wasn't. That would be a question for Commissioner Bush. I'm not sure if that's something I'm able to share, but they're not anyone who is a threat to the public.
Think about the relationship of that those arrested have to one another. Do they share the same ideology, or what is their...
Certainly that is the assumption that I would make at this stage. We've seen from one of the offenders that they have publicised their ideology. I have no reason to assume anything other than that those others who have been arrested would subscribe to the same ideology, which I can only describe as
Are they New
extreme.
Zealanders?
What's your plan for visiting?
I'm not in a position to give away additional details on their citizenship at this stage, Barry.
Is there anything else about the IEDs, what they were, how they were disarmed, and whether there's any risk that there could be further?
You know, at this point, I think that's an opportunity to really acknowledge the work that the police are doing. You know, the apprehending of a suspect in an extremely volatile situation, really putting themselves at risk on our behalves, and I want to acknowledge that. Particularly also disarming the explosives that were, as I understand, attached to the suspects' cars. There were 2 of them. They have been disarmed now, but obviously that was a high-risk situation. Gives us an indication that there was a degree of planning around what has happened today.
Was there an intention for a suicide attack?
I cannot speculate around what the intention was, but again, it was attached to the suspects' vehicles.
The IEDs being out there?
Not at this stage.
Attached to an individual.
Yes. A message for anybody who, and the media around the world who are sharing that video and watching the live stream?
Look, my message would be, you know, we should not be perpetuating, sharing, giving any oxygen to this act of violence and the message that sat behind it. We should all be condemning, obviously, what has happened here today in the peaceful nation of New Zealand. And what all of us can at least do is ensure that we do not share, spread, or actively engage in that message of hate. We have been given assurance that online, at least those platforms where some of those images have been shared are actively being removed. But I just ask people, don't share them.
Can we still call ourselves a peaceful nation?
Yes. This is not who we are. This act was not a reflection of who we are as a nation. That is why so many New Zealanders, every New Zealander, I imagine, will be shocked by this today, because this isn't who we are. You know, this is something that all of us will utterly reject. And of course, it will take time to heal, and tonight our thoughts and our prayers need to be with those affected. But I'm sure, of course, that all of us want to retain the identity we have as a nation, because that's why those who live here live here.
Prepared as Prime Minister for this to happen in New Zealand?
Of course, our agencies always need to be prepared. We need to be vigilant. We need to ensure that if we have an act like this on our shores, that we respond quickly to give assurances to the public that we can protect them and that their safety is top of mind. So we are always prepared. Are we personally prepared for these things to happen? An event like this, of course, is always a shock, but for our agencies, we were ready.
In other countries around the world where they've seen attacks like this, there have unfortunately been copycat attacks or kind of follow-up attacks. Is that a concern in New Zealand?
We must always be vigilant. Obviously, we've lifted our threat level from low to high. That's, of course, so that we can continue to give assurance to the public around their safety. It means we've heightened our response from our agencies at the border, at the airport. In fact, at every level, we have a heightened response. And again, that's so we can give that assurance of safety to the public.
Is he doing enough in the, are agencies doing enough in the lead up?
Oh, certainly, as I say, of course, events like this, we always have preparations in place, and of course we'll always be working to ensure that we've adequately responded.
Christchurch.
Yeah, I'm very keen to travel as soon as I can, but of course within reason, taking advice from the police around when I can do that in such a way that doesn't interfere with their operational work. My hope is that at the very latest that I'll be down there tomorrow.
You'd heard from Scott Morrison. Are there any world leaders around the world that have contacted you in the wake of this attack?
Look, some of that may have come directly to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, but at least I know directly, certainly from Australia at this stage. Often messages are conveyed via social media as well, and I'm sure everyone would want to thank them for their thoughts and their offer of assistance.
Confirm that there was an IRD at the hospital, whether there were any shots fired or whether that was a gross shooting incident?
No, I haven't had any information that that confirms that at all. No.
That there was an IED found on an individual?
No, I cannot confirm that. Do feel free to put that question to the Commissioner.
So presumably you'll be having more meetings with our intelligence agencies to find out just what went on and why these people were missed. When are you going to be meeting with them again?
Look, I expect I'm likely to reconvene with them again this evening. You'll appreciate, Barry, that at the moment our immediate response is on ensuring the safety of those in Christchurch, ensuring that the police have everything they need from an operational perspective to secure the areas and be assured that everyone who should be in custody is, acknowledging that they have moved extremely quickly to have those individuals already in custody. Of course, we will continue to look at the details around the suspects and every element of this attack, but tonight it's about securing the safety of others.
How many gunmen or gunwomen there were in this attack?
At this stage, again, as I say, 3 have been arrested. We have no reason to suspect at this stage there were others, but we haven't obviously ruled that out at this stage.
Will they actually use firearms?
I cannot give you 100% assurance of that, but certainly all 3 are connected.
Will you be getting any additional security, or will there be any additional security at the Parliament?
Look, at this stage, obviously, I'm one of the members of Parliament that always has a security detail with me. Obviously, at the moment that we were informed of this situation, there was a slightly heightened presence, but I expect that soon that will probably resume back to my normal presence.
Just back on the previous question, it was separate offenders at Linwood and Hagley?
It was separate offenders who, look, I can't give specifics around who was directly involved at each mosque, and nor am I sure at this stage that that's detail that we're sharing. Do feel free to put the question to the Commissioner, though.
Can I just clarify?
Yes.
You might have answered this before, but police didn't have these people under active investigation or had them were aware of them?
That is my understanding.
Kiwis across New Zealand who want to do something for the Muslim community currently.
Sorry.
Give any advice to the Kiwis across New Zealand who want to do something for the Muslim community currently?
At this stage, advice has been given to those who would usually wish to worship at their local mosque, that for the time being they're being asked to just not to congregate there. But in time, my hope would be that the outpouring of compassion and support that I know New Zealanders will want to show it to them. Show it to the members of the community who sought to worship safely and who were the victims of this attack today. And I know New Zealanders will want to do that.
Canada is Australian born, but do you know how long he has been in New Zealand?
My understanding that it is a relatively short period of time since last entry into New Zealand. Again, I don't want to get into too many details around that because that's still an emerging picture.
Nationality watch list, we do know that he didn't have any prior convictions?
Sorry.
So if he wasn't on
What I'll say at the moment is that they weren't on a watch list. Again, I'm cautious around how much more I say, given that we have individuals in custody and I don't want to jeopardise the case. But that may be detail that the Commissioner may be willing to share. All right, everyone. Look, I'll look to reconvene and give you any additional insights I can tomorrow. We'll be keeping everyone updated. My plan is to get to Christchurch as early as I can and as soon as the police are happy for me to do so.
The bomb scare at Britomart, do you know if that's connected in any way?
No, I certainly can't confirm that. That's nothing I've been briefed on. We'll make sure that the Commissioner is able to give you information as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone.
Prime Minister that is the Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern talking there at the press conference, giving a few more details, updating us on certainly the number dead, 40 dead we understand as a result of these two separate attacks, and another 20 are seriously wounded as a result of the two mosque shootings in Christchurch in New Zealand. We understand the hospital is currently treating 48 gunshot wound victims at the moment, and that the national security threat has now been raised too high. Although the airspace remains open, they are saying that they remain vigilant. We understand that there were 2 IEDs that were disarmed. They were attached to the suspects' vehicles. They were disarmed by the Defence Force. 3 individuals at the moment have been arrested. One of them has publicly stated that he is Australian born, and certainly Jacinda Ardern saying that the assumption is that they share the same extremist ideology. So at this stage, those are the details that we have. This is a developing story. Mrs. Ardern describing the shootings as a terrorist attack for the very first time, and that this is indeed the country's darkest day. So the Australian Prime Minister as well has been speaking in the last hour or so, Scott Morrison, confirming that one of the citizens is an Australian-born citizen who has been arrested, calling him an extremist, right-wing, violent terrorist. There was a manifesto that was posted online. There was also, we understand, a live stream of the attack posted on social media that has subsequently been pulled down by Facebook, and the entire community, including the Prime Minister, asking not to give oxygen to this by sharing it, by showing it, and to give as many of your thoughts and prayers to the people associated in this attack. It's worth saying that there is at the moment advice from the police that nationwide mosques should remain closed. Now on the line we can speak